I didn't use the clutch to change up then. I forgot. I wouldn't have minded a quick shifter. I must see if there is one, because I'd want a quick shifter. I found it the #1 everyday feature that I like the most of my Triumph. Oh, the brakes are great. Scrub off a tiny bit of speed. A fair bit of engine braking. I think on this, I had a quick look at the manual. On the different sport modes, the different rider modes, gives a different amount of engine braking. So in sport mode, there's more engine braking, and you know, you can feel the engine braking. Fucking hell, you have to hold on. There's no lack of urgency, and I wasn't even really caning it. You get a little bit of vibration as you pile it on a bit, but nice vibration. What gear am I in? See, that's it. I can't really see what gear I'm in at a glance. What gear? Third gear. Yeah, for these roads you probably wouldn't want any more than third. It gives you so much control of these lower gears. Yeah, really happy with the performance. Suspension's great. Yeah, I like that suspension. Now for this road, I can feel that's a bit over damped, and not a problem for the bike, it's because of the road. So if I just go back to rider mode, or road mode I should say, yeah, that's changed that appreciably, quite a lot. On balance, if I was, yeah, on balance, that's too soft for this road. It needs to be a bit tauter for this road. So this normal road mode, would be great for regular road riding around town, motorways. But for the twisties, it's a bit too soft. Again, not an exaggeration, because they've given you a sport mode to firm that damping up. It's very compliant though, very comfortable, I will say. The suspension, I mean, you know. Yeah, definitely got to go back into sport mode. I bet you can go into well, actually, there's 2 configurable road-based rider modes you can configure with this. And you know what I might be tempted to do is I might be tempted to configure one up, copy, because you can copy modes. Oops, bloody stalled it. Copy the sport mode, What am I talking about? What am I bloody talking about? Well, this is what I meant to say. This is what I was trying to say with my fuddled brain. A lot of that road is great in sport mode and the suspension's right for it and everything like that. But there's a good few sections of that road that just get too rough. And whereas you might like to ride it in the sport mode, you just need a little less damping because it's just too hard. So that's where we might have copied the sport mode, the rider mode, and then but reduced the damping to the road level. So that's great. So for those sections of that type of road where you want that throttle response, you want that engine braking, everything like that, but that damping is just a bit too harsh for those conditions, there's a nice example of a great rider mode we can have for that type of condition. I mean, look, that's just one example. There's loads of examples, obviously. Now, that's not quite as convenient as a Tiger 1200. On the fly, in any rider mode in a Tiger 1200, you just move your joystick and change your damping there and then. So that's a little bit more of a faff, but yeah, swings and roundabouts. There are some other great features of the Pan America setup. For instance, on the Pan America, we've got engine brake in there, top right there. And I have to say, that is great, and you can feel the difference. You can feel the difference between the sport mode and the normal road mode. It's something you can't do on the Tiger 1200. You have no option to do anything like that. And it is really nice. It was great coming across that road with that engine braking in sport mode. It really was nice to have. It's a good looking bike from this angle. Very, very good looking. It has its own look. It definitely has its own look, which is a good thing. That front end is an acquired taste, but I tell you what, I'm not saying it's growing on me, but you actually get used to it and you think, what the hell? You know, this bike is a lot more than a front end design. Let's see if I can remember how to start this thing. Oh. Yeah, so roads like this, you want to be in sport mode. I do feel it's firmed up the damping. And it's just giving you a little bit more control. The damping's just a bit too soft on the rain mode. The normal road mode, rider mode. Now I say that just for this type of road, that you're accelerating, braking. For a regular kind of road and around town, normal mode will be fine. So everything I just said there, none of that's a criticism. It's all good. You can get this thing acting as you want it to. Yeah, heat-wise, I'm not suffering from any heat off this engine, but we're unlikely to in Ireland because days like this are quite rare. I want to say it's slightly less manoeuvrable than my Tiger in terms of change in direction, and I'm just wondering whether that's the effect of the steering damper, and it's a bit illusionary, but it's not bad in any way. I kind of know already I'd buy this bike. Oh, that exhaust is lovely. That's a lovely sound. That's a lovely sound off that engine. The only thing I can criticise this bike for at the moment is that dash, the small writing on it. It's possible, I think there's something to do with these widgets around the outside. If I take them off, maybe the rest of the writing might get bigger. I don't know. I'll see if I can have a play. Kind of difficult without the manual. The only thing I'll say, right, the switch gear on this, you have it understood in about 2 minutes. It's very, very intuitive. Yeah, this is very capable on this road, I have to say. Oh, gravel. Oh, that's some view in it. You'd swear some spotty teenager had put an aftermarket exhaust on this thing. I'd have to test ride it with the stock exhaust first to see if it gave the same effect. The clutch is light enough. I wouldn't say it's super light, but it's light enough. It's a slip assist clutch, so that's great. Any untoward too early downshifts will be taken care of for you, or mitigated at least. The spoke wheels look lovely on it. They do. Would I ever take this bike off-road? It's not my scene. Taking 1200cc bikes off-road. I fluted about a bit when I was younger on, you know, little 250s and stuff like that. Yeah, those brakes are great. The side stand is a bit weird. I say it's a bit weird, it's actually, my Honda's exactly the same. The side stand is right at the front there. How do I switch it off again? That's it. Well, okay, that's a Harley top box. It looks similar to lots of other kind of boxes. That Screaming Eagle exhaust is a bit slimmer than the stock one, but it's not radically different. It's a very clean looking bike. The engine looks fantastic, really compact. It's a 60-degree V-twin, but they've offset the crank 30 degrees, so you're getting like a 90-degree firing order. So they're offset 90 degrees, so they're firing within 90 degrees of each other. So that'll give it a bit of a kick on. Chain, yeah, fine. Chain don't bother me. Nice tubeless wire wheels. I do like the look of the wire wheels. I do think they do something for the bike. I think there's a bit of an issue though with max loading capacity on this bike. And if I was to buy one of these, I would have to go with the alloys and try and give me the max loaded capacity of this bike is much lower than the Tiger. This bike might struggle with 2 up for me. Brembos on the front. Radiator shrouds, guards. There's actually, I've done a bit of reading up, just underneath that exhaust, there's actually an oil exchange, an oil cooler. Not in the radiator type oil cooler. There's a heat exchanger, and the oil is passed through a heat exchanger with the engine coolant to keep the oil cool. But then if the oil is getting too hot, it's using the engine coolant to cool the oil as well. So it's kind of one way or the other. Yeah, I've had no problem with that seat. The seat's lovely. There seems to be a nice bit of distance between the pillion peg and the rider peg, which they were a bit close in the old Tiger. This looks very tigerish actually. It looks great from this angle. It does. It looks fantastic. It's completely different. I love that it's completely different. This thing on the front, I actually like it now. I thought it was freaking awful. Not just bad, freaking awful. I quite like it now. That whole front end presence of the bike looks very nice. Okay, screen's manual. Whether that's great at 130 on a motorway and stuff, difficult to tell. I'm probably not going to get to test that today. But look, that's an issue with most bikes. You know, everybody changes screens. Aftermarket screen market is massive, isn't it? Everyone has a problem with the screen. I bet I could put a top lip, an MRA lip on that, and that would perfectly make that screen perfectly adequate for all riding styles. Yeah, that's nice. I like that. I love that this seat this raising and lowering in the bike and this adaptive suspension, it's happening at the front as well. It's not just the rear shock doing it. Okay, light flash. This switch gear is dead obvious. I'm not going to go through it because it's so easy to work out. Okay, some stuff here. I'll look at this. Okay, Bluetooth stuff. I'll look at some of this stuff later. Music, bike setup, navigation stuff. I think this is touchscreen. It is. Okay, tyre pressure monitors. They're in kilopascals. I don't know what that is. Engine temperature. Very nice. USB-C port on the side there. That's dead handy. Shame they don't have somewhere to mount a sat-nav. But if they've got any navigation in this screen, then that would make that redundant, I guess. How do I get off that? Oh, I've kicked off the Bluetooth or something. I'll just go home. If I've got time, I'll have another look at that screen when I'm stopped. Yeah, that's nice. Aye, sheep ahoy! There's some Harley risers in the catalogue, and I thought I would need the risers because on a lot of bikes I find the bars a little too much for reach for me, because I have short arms and short legs. I'm 6 foot, but I have short arms and short legs. But I wouldn't touch these. These are perfect. They're, yeah. Got a slight bend to my elbow. Okay, standing up feels a little bit precarious. I've got ADV boots on. I wonder, let's have a look. Let's have a look. What are these pegs? Yeah, I would put a different, bigger pair of serrated pegs on. Not that I'm a big stand-up off-roady man, but yeah, even though I've got short arms, right, if you're into standing up and doing a lot of off-road, you definitely want those risers, and I think Harley have a 2-inch riser. You definitely want those. I'm hunched over holding on to these bars, but that actually suits me because I am short on the arm, because I'm not going to ever go off-roading a bike like this. So these bars would stay exactly as they are. Yeah, it can only be 20 or 30 kilos less than the Tiger, but the Tiger's not a ponderous bike, but this is, it's weird, it's less ponderous in a way, but then the damper takes the edge off the steering on this, making you put a little bit more input into it as well. I don't really know what I'm trying to say there. because the Tiger isn't a ponderous bike. This does feel, even though what I'm trying to say is, even though the steering is a bit odd on this with this steering damper, it's an easy bike to change direction on. So I like the steering on this. Whoa, that is rough. Taken care of though. Taken care of like a pro. Now I'm going to say something here. I reckon I could get over the Wicklow Mountains on this road. I mean, it's rough as fuck. Quicker on this than I could my Tiger. I know that's not a, yeah, it's not really a brag. It's just an observation, really. I'm going to have to look more into the load capacity of this bike and stuff like that, weights and measures and all that sort of stuff. Do some research. Do a bit of research along with the test drive. Okay, it looks like the Special is only about, I don't know, 11 to 12 kilos lighter than the Tiger. And I'm just comparing cast wheel models here to make it a bit easier. We kind of know why that is. The Tiger's sporting a shaft drive. But what I will say, even though it's not an awful lot lighter than the Tiger, it feels a lot lighter just because the way it holds its weight and where it holds its weight. So yeah, I think it's a definite plus point to the Harley on that one. Where the Harley really lets the side down though is the load carrying capacity. This Special only has a loading capacity of 201 kilos. That's a good 27 kilos behind a Tiger, an equivalent Tiger, an XRX or an XRT. The standard's a lot better at 212, but then it's not lugging around quite so much electronics. But I'm really quite surprised at that. That might, if you're a big two-up, load, lug-in, fill your bike and all the bags type of tourer, adventure bike rider, the Pan America Special may not suit you. If you don't go two-up pillion, it really makes no difference to you whatsoever. Yeah, I'm enjoying this. Yeah, chain be damned. I don't mind chains. Now I should try rain mode. There's no chance of it raining today. Let's have a look. Mode button is easy to get to. Oh, I just shot past it. Alright, I'm in rain mode. Oh, that totally castrates it. You got to turn the throttle a quarter of a turn before anything happens. Which is what you want on a rainy day. Right, and I can immediately feel, most manufacturers do this. Oh, it's like a strangled cat. Most manufacturers do this. If they've got electronic suspension, the suspension is back right off, very soft. So minimum damping. Look, it's because they're trying to keep the rubber in contact with the road. They're trying to say, look, we're gonna back the damping right off to give maximum chance that the rubber's going to be in touch with the tarmac for grip and for braking purposes, etc. Like this is like Boingy City. If you wanted to get used to this bike and the power of this bike in rain mode, that's a perfect example of where you would use a customized rider mode. You would copy rain mode but firm the damping up. The damping's far too soft for a general day-to-day riding, really. So go to rain mode, copy it and firm up the damping. set it to a firmer setting. You must be able to. I'm not saying this is gutless, but it's very soft. But that is that's quite pleasant actually. You know, if you if you wanted to just relax, take your time, the rain mode's very pleasant. And sometimes that's what you have to do, you know. I have a Honda CB1100. It's very low on power. And you know what? I feel like the bunny rabbit out of the Cadbury's caramel chocolate bar ad, who's like super laid back. I don't think those ads are on telly anymore. But that's what a CB1100 makes you ride like. And so does the rain mode on this. Yeah, you know, you could still make good progress. Very leisurely. Right, that's enough of rain mode. Commendable though, commendable. I find I'm selecting the rider mode and then just twisting the throttle forward to select it. Very straightforward. I love intuitive bikes, intuitive dashes. This is what Triumph do very well as well. Like, oh, this has gone around that very cleanly, very nicely. That was minimal effort. I like what Harley have done with the look. I was fully up to speed on everything this dash could do within 5 minutes really, and the switch gear, and that's something I find I can't say for Harley really, because it's been a long time since I owned a Harley, but the this one is great. It's a bit like the Triumph. They're totally obvious what you're changing or setting up. Like if you've seen that Hayabusa, 10 levels of contraction, 10 levels of contraction, 10, what, I've got babies on the brain, Jesus, it's not at my age, thanks. 10 levels of traction control. Oh yeah, no, I thought I wanted 6, but I actually wanted 7. It's a pity they don't come in halves. I wanted traction control 7.5. You get tired of that shit and the novelty would wear off, and after about a week you'd never change your traction control again, would you? These bikes are very simplistic. There'll only be a few levels of traction on this. There won't be like 10 stages or anything. Heated bars, heated hand grips, got its own button. It's got its own button, that's great. God, BMW owners would probably want that. I can't stand these going several menus deep to look for a button, especially something as simple as a heated handlebar grip. So that's great. The buttons don't look backlit, and I do like that about my Triumph. But the amount of times I drive at night time, it's very few and far between really. So it's a luxury you'll only realise every now and then. There's no heated seats on this. I don't see them as an option, but I must get the accessories catalogue and see what's available for this bike. But the things that strike me the most getting on this bike, apart from the engine, because you always feel a different engine, don't you? It is the seat to peg ratio is excellent. I like that. And the ergonomics to the bars, excellent. This will suit smaller people. This will suit shorter people. Well, I know that's the whole point of the adaptive ride height, but yeah, taller people I'd say would definitely want, I do believe there is a tall seat. They'd want the tall seat and the risers. They'd definitely want the risers. Anyone 6 foot plus, I'd say, with a standard kind of 32-inch leg, stuff like that, would want the tall seat on this and the risers. the screen's in the lowest position and I'm not getting any turbulence on my helmet. And do you know, I always wear earplugs, but I must be getting air on me somewhere. Yeah, it's mid-helmet, but it's very clean air. There's not a lot of noise in my helmet, and I have a noisy helmet. So with that screen in the lowest position, that's not bad. That's quite clean air coming off the front there. This bike's not going to give me quite so much wet weather protection. It's not as big and bulbous at the front here as a lot of adventure bikes. Well, I have to say, I've had no desire to buy another Harley, but I'd buy this. And okay, it might be lacking in a few things like adaptive cruise control, a la KTM and BMW and stuff. I don't care. I don't think I want it. It's nothing to do with whether I can afford those bikes or not. I just don't think I need it. You know, it's like having a grand's worth kit that you use once in a while. You know, if someone told me, you know, my Triumph would be €500 cheaper if it didn't have backlit switchgear, I'd go, yeah, great, take it off. You know, it's nice to have, but, and if money's no object, yeah, shit, go for all that stuff. I would actually like the manual suspension version of this bike, because it has the spec of the manual suspension version is excellent. It's absolutely, it's excellent. Same beautiful engine, same dash, cruise, all that sort of stuff. Obviously there are some things not on there, excuse me, but it has a humongous seat height of 890 millimeters, I believe. That would just exclude me from that bike, just totally exclude me from that bike. And this bike without the adaptive ride height, I would probably be excluded from as well, just because I have got that 29-inch leg. But if I had a 31-inch leg or bigger, I 100% wouldn't bother with the adaptive ride height, because you just don't need it. You just don't need it. You'll just have a further bent knee when it kicks in, that's all. It'll give you no advantage. It's just making this bike more accessible to people like me and people with shorter legs again. There's a lower seat than this as well, and there's a low seat position, and I had the seat on a low seat position on this, and my legs didn't feel cramped. It's usually the hips that it gets you on. I like the low seat on my Tiger, and I thought I would. I like the seat on my Tiger, and I thought I'd stick with that for a while. But on longer journeys, it got a bit tiresome on the old hips, because it's a bit acute. With the seat in the low position on this, I still felt there was decent seat to peg ratio. So, you know, I think even I, with my 29-inch legs, could buy this bike without the adaptive ride height option, put the seat in the low position and get on just fine with it. I think, though, for the added convenience, I would buy the adaptive ride height, though. For resale value, but also just to give me the option of using the seat in the high position and giving me a bit more leg room. It's funny, this bike feels a lot lighter than my Triumph. People looking in their mirror must be going, what the hell is that behind me? It's an old Hoover. I'll see if I can drop into the cafe in Lara for a cup of tea. If I was 2 up now, I'd need to find somewhere firming up that suspension, and what I'd do is that would be one of my custom modes. You'd end up with a road or sport, copy of road or sport mode, and then try and firm up the suspension. You'll probably have the suspension in some sort of sport setting to take the 2 up load. So I don't even have to look at the setup of it. I know I'll be able to do that. It's a lovely bike to ride. Getting a new bike's a novelty, isn't it? I bet I could get in a Royal Enfield 500 Himalayan, and I go, that's bloody brilliant, that is. See, you can't listen. Well, I say you can't listen. It's dangerous listening to a Harley rider getting on this, because they get on it and they go, oh my god, like it's the best thing since sliced bread. Well, that's because they've been used to a bloody big lazy engine high torque bike, but low on urgency, if you know what I mean. And it's not a fair comparison. I'd say they're all blown away getting on this thing, whereas me being on regular kind of bikes most of the time, I've been quite used to this sort of thing. I'm not saying that to be a twat, you know what I mean? I'm saying the bikes I'm coming from, you know, decently powered bikes. So the urgency of this bike doesn't blow me away. But it's excellent. Yeah, those front stoppers are perfect. Absolutely perfect. The rear is a typical weak brake, as it is on every bike, because there's no downward force on the rubber, so that's why you don't have a huge brake around the rear. Oh yeah, the front brakes are great on this. Let's see if I can get a coffee here now. We can. Might have to even get a cold drink. Here we are at the Glendalough Green. Well, there's been a power cut and the cafe's closed. Oh my god. That's a lovely sound, isn't it? Yeah, road mode's great around town. That's what you want. See if I can get a Coke in here. Well, a lovely rehydrate stop. Oh, I think I've got a tyre pressure warning light up. Better check it for punctures. That's odd. Trip B, odometer. This thing's got 1400 kilometres on it. Okay. Just going to keep an eye on those tyres. There's a tyre pressure warning light up, it looks like, but it doesn't tell me anything about the pressure. So I've got a feeling they're probably okay. But I'm just going to cycle the power, just in case that gets rid of it. Still there. Okay. Keep an eye on that. Now it's an orange light, so it probably might be okay. I think it's time for sport mode. Yeah, sport mode does make a big difference on that throttle response. It's an easy bike to ride fast if you want to, within the limits of course. It has a real pull on it on low gears. You can set the adaptive ride height to be off instantaneous, or I think there's a half-second delay, and I think there's either a 1.5 or 2.5 second delay. So if you come to a lot of junctions and you keep rolling, you might want to just kind of put the half-second delay on it to save it going up and down when you didn't really need it. But at least you've got the choice, so that's great. Yeah, you know, for these higher speeds, you really want that quick shifter. I could have changed up mid-bend there, and it's just a little bit more effort using the clutch. There's this difficult, yeah. The screen in the higher position, I don't know whether it's made too much of a difference really, but it will give you a lot more coverage in the rain, in the higher position, I guess. This is a very different bike. It's kind of refined but visceral. Is that a thing? A viscerally refined bike? Yeah, I mean, you can hear that. But it's actually a very smooth bike. It's funny, even the vibrations in it are kind of like damp vibrations. They're not annoying. What am I in? Yeah, third gear. Yeah, they really need to make more room on that screen, or use that screen better. That'd be, I think that's my only criticism at this stage, that screen. Nice in that it's easy to understand what's going on with it, but the lettering's too small. I wonder why they put a damper on it. Is that for people who like going off-road? Because I can't imagine it's needed for the road, I'll be honest. Yeah, the suspension is bloody brilliant on this. It's absolutely brilliant. Those brakes. Oh, that sounds lovely. I could show you going through the menus and stuff like that, but I don't think it's really important. It's how the bike rides and the feel it gives you. like, you know, all going through that menu is just going to show you, I don't know, creating a new rider mode. Like all the preloads taken care of here, but you can go into suspension settings. So I think there is a menu setting for the suspension for the preload. If you're going 2 up or with luggage, we'll try and find that. But otherwise, there's not much to the setup. And to be honest, all the stuff, all the gubbins on the screen and stuff like that, there's such a tiny part of the bike when it's all down to, you know, the handling, how the engine feels, the look of the bike, everything like that. You know, how you set up the suspension or something like that, it's just detail. You know, you'll just find out. Of course, this has a 6-axis IMU, so it's corner and ABS, corner and traction. You kind of can't sell a top-end adventure bike without it now. Yeah, those brakes are good. The banging and popping out of this thing is fantastic. The sport mode on this does, and the engine, does encourage spirited riding, I will say. In a way you probably can't do quite so much on the Tiger. And you know, I've got a feeling, look, I've got a feeling about this bike that it's going to be well sorted. And there are going to be so few issues with it because they've had this engine and this frame for so long before they released it. I'd say they will want to give this thing a good old panning to make sure it's going to stand up to the rigours of just everyday usage. Like now I'm just trundling along, it's very mild-mannered. You don't have to ride this bike sportily, you know. Like I'm just in road mode here. It's very relaxed. That rides really well on these roads. A little bit of conscious steering effort there, just a little bit. Wow, 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 you just pull right out in front of me. So one of the big wins on this for me and my shape and size, ergo's a big win. Ergo's a really big win for me. And I think with a taller seat and the bar risers, that'll have the taller people sorted. So that's nice. That's very nice, and you know, that's a lot about what choosing a bike is all about. There can be nothing worse than buying a bloody bike and going, oh my god. Look, I'll be perfectly honest now. I'm gonna. When I bought my Triumph Daytona 1200. I was in my 30s and it was like, yeah, whatever, that's great. Or remember going to Le Mans in it and everything. But bloody hell, it's quite a compromised riding position for long distance. And you do have to pay a lot more attention to ergos when you get to my sort of age. And there's nothing I would do to this bike. Standard seat in the normal position, regular bars, that's exactly as I would have it. There's a little bit of a hooligan in this bike. It's not as a conservative bike as it would look from the outside. What a day, what a day. Let's have a look. Oh, that's rider modes. Oh, you get a summary of how the bike's set up when you fire it up. So, mapping stuff, music, road. Okay, this is great. You can turn rider modes off. Brilliant. So you don't have to scroll through the menu. Excellent. I want that on my Triumph. Okay. Handy. Hold control on off. Yeah. It's handy. When you get through the menu, you give them directions of what you can do. This is very good. Appearance, screen brightness, dash customization. You can change it to simple. Okay. I've changed the dash to simple, and I thought it might make more use of the real estate and make the rest, what was left on the screen, larger. But it hasn't. It's just removed the information around the dash. I mean, it's nice that it declutters it. Like, if there's going to be an alarm or a warning of some stage, you'll get a message anyway. Yeah, I find myself using the tiniest bit opposite lock steering, and it's possibly because of the steering damper. It's not an issue. I think it's just something you get used to. There's a little bit of reluctance for that to steer there.
Now I'm going to advance a little bit of a theory on this. I think, look, I'm over the average weight of an average motorcyclist. Yeah, a good bit over. And I think, and my suspension was in auto mode. I think, had I changed that to say rider plus cargo, even, that might have raised the rear preload a little bit and sharpened up the steering. You know, if this was a manual bike with manual suspension, the first thing I would have done would have been to go to that rear shock and put some more preload on that rear shock, lift the rear end a little bit, sharpen up the trail, the rake and the trail, or sharpen up the rake and shorten the trail a bit. So I think that might be my problem with the steering on this bike. Not that it was a big problem, but I do think if I change that suspension setting to rider plus luggage, or even rider plus pillion, it just depends. It's worth trying. I could probably get that dialed out, and it's just that the auto setting is set for a lighter rider, and it is because I'm a heavy rider. Look, I'm probably clobbered up here. I'm probably sitting there at 120 kilos. An average weight American male is 90 kilos. I'm sure most people in the West, where Ireland and the UK, are pretty similar as well. So that's what I think that is. That's what I think that is. So if you're a big heavy guy and you find it's a little bit odd getting this thing round the corners, go to your setup, take that suspension out of auto and jack it up a bit with rider and luggage and see if you feel the difference. I wish I'd tried that now when I was at the test ride, but oh well. Can't think of everything.
I'm probably repeating myself a bit there now, but I'm trying to get the overall feel of this bike through. The more I ride it, the brakes are stupendous. And there, I'm talking about having to put a bit of effort into the steering, right? But that sharp left-hander there was no bother at all. It wasn't some ponderous corner, like it was dead easy. So, bit of a dichotomy on the steering there. you know, maybe on a bit of a longer sweeper, you're putting a bit more effort in. You get to slow speed and doing a sharp turn like that, and it was you know, lovely. So I've still got my warning up here, so now I'm back to metric. I'd still like to be able to put my tyre pressures in PSI rather than kilopascals. Units, standard and metric. So metric's like non-standard.